Yo, hello. Welcome to the stream, everyone. Hello. Nice to see you all. Hope you're all doing well. Let's see, get the food bar closed here before any accidents happen. Actually, no, accidents can't happen because I muted it. Hell yeah. Hello. Hi, Hippo. Hello. Hello, James. Welcome to gaming. Welcome to the place for gaming. Let's get to the actual gaming here. So you can get the gaming on rails. Oh, that's not gaming, that's me! That's gaming. I found it. Although I haven't found the audio yet. Where's the audio? There's the audio. Hello, welcome. Oh! Frig, I haven't tested it. I installed those mods between last time, which makes bits of the audio quiet or louder. So you'll have to let me know how it sounds right now. I mean, right now it's gonna sound very quiet. I can barely hear it. I can barely hear it. What's going on? Really should have tested this. What a gooby goober I am. Little silly little guy. Silly little guy right in time for my birthday. Is that better? Might be. It looks still really quiet. How are y'all doing? I hope you're all well. I hope you're all doing swimmingly. I had a pretty chill day. I would say, but I've been assembling IKEA all day. I actually got a little band-aid in my thumb right now because of how much I've used the screwdriver. I should have used my what do you call those things? Like a, you know, like a little drill thing. You know, like I got like an automatic thing, and I should use that because I ended up like turning my screwdriver enough that I not only got a blister on my thumb, but then popped it with the screwdriver. I was like, oh shit, there's a massive hole in my thumb. Whoops. Shouldn't have done that. Hang on. Do I just put it all to 10? Is that what I do? I guess I can try. Might have to turn the game sound up a bit as well. How's this? That looks fine to me. The proof's in the pudding. Hello, Kark. Welcome. Welcome to gaming. Gaming of the plural variety, even. God, my hair looks like shit. Should have done with my hair. Oh no. Anyway, well, we're all here for gaming. We're not here for hair, thankfully. Otherwise, I'm in trouble. That's my third favorite stream about volume doing. I'm doing great, thank you. Yeah, I saw that, yeah. So Nekka liked your tweet, that's cool. I got the Twitch recap. I had no idea. I was chatting up a storm in people's chats, dude. I had 2.5 thousand chats messages. It's been crazy. Although, I'd hazard to guess that James has got me beat by a lot. You have to let me know how many chat messages you sent. I thought I was pretty shy though in Twitch chats, but no, I'm at 2.5 thousand. Carl's got 4,000. Hey, you got me beat by almost double. Almost. The heck? Maybe I'm not sending that many messages though, but like 2.5, it just sounds like a lot. It just sounds like so much. I put it on next stream and it was quite a bit. Yeah, like I guess that's how I am too. But like I only really chat in like 1 or 2 streams. But I guess in those streams I do talk a lot. Like yeah, I feel like I chatted a lot like when you stream or like my friends stream, like when James has had an odd stream, Matthias streamed a bit. I feel like each one of those streams is probably like 1,000 messages. So that's probably how it works, right? Because I'm just very, very active. James got 3.5 thousand. Oh wow! So Kolik is actually the number 1 chatter here by volume then. Oh, never mind. 3.5 in here. Right. 6.6 total. Yeah. Yeah, I figured. Yeah, because you're like fairly active in like FGC chats, right? Like you talked about being active in like European FGC tournament chats and stuff. So I figured you'd have me beat by a lot. Oh yeah, so like half of it was in this chat. So. Yeah, fair. I love these little recaps. They're quite funny. Apparently, one of my biggest like games of the year was Psychonauts. I'm a Psychonauts streamer apparently. What else was I? As a Prey streamer, Psychonauts streamer, an Ooblet streamer, I think. Like Ooblets I can kind of get, but I don't know about Psychonauts. You got that as your top game twice. Yeah, you got Psychonauts and Psychonauts 2, didn't you? Next year will be Dragon Age? Yeah, it will. It will. There's gonna be a lot of Dragon Age. Unless I find some way to cheat and rig the system. Maybe I'll get all those mods and like, skip the Fade, we skip the Edmund Castle, we skip the whatever, like, and then we just finish the game. Then we don't have to stream Dragon Age for months and whatnot. What? I just realized, I was like, why is my camera so cursed? What does it look so weird? And I remembered. I'm like so zoomed out. Hang on, let's do the dramatic zoom again. There we go. Oh, that's too much. That's too much. There we go. There we go. That's not curse. I was like unsettled by what was going on in my encoder. Mostly watch the Elden Ring. I swear to God, dude. I can I can imagine. This was a big year for Elden Ring. Elden Ring came out in like spring or something, didn't it? It's crazy. I feel like Elden Ring just came out because like Elden Ring still feels like a relevant game. And it's like a single player game. And it's been like relevant this whole year. It's crazy. I mean, especially if you're someone like Lobos or something. You know, Lobos Jr. or any of those like Soulsborne guys. They'll like get so much mileage out of those games. But Elden Ring was like so huge. Elden Ring came out last winter? No way. No, when was the release date of that? Wasn't that like February or something? Maybe it was just before, yeah, it was just before spring. It was February, right? I can't think if it was like May or April or February. I don't remember. Yeah, February 25th. Yeah. How absurd is that? It's been like months and months, and like Elden Ring is like still in the public consciousness. That's absurd. I should watch some more Elden Ring runs. I didn't watch many challenge runs of Elden Ring, but I watched some speedruns. That's really funny. But my second most watched game is a Samurai Jack game I've never heard of. Have you watched it while you were sleeping or something? Did you like leave your phone on like a stream or something? Like it like raided someone that was like speedrunning Samurai Jack. There's gotta be something like that. I didn't even know there was a Samurai Jack game. Like who else would be streaming like Samurai Jack on like a speedrun or something? Perhaps it's a good time. We get started with the Fade, or approaching the Fade. I don't know exactly how close we are, but I think we're at the top of the tower. I think I quit the stream just before a big fight, which I feel like is gonna be just before the Fade. So good luck, gamers. You know, you've all been a real one here. Okay. Got it. Stone form is so cursed. It's more like flesh form. Did you see that? Oh, that's upsetting. Oh. Ooh, no, that's upsetting. Also, it's a bit too loud. Let's get this cracked down a bit. Is that good? I think that's good. Not the texture, but the sound effect. Well, you'll have to let me know in the fight how it sounds. Yeah, the sound effects and the combat music was much too loud in the vanilla game. For some reason, no matter how much you reduce the sound effects volume, the music volume, it would just like jack up the combat music and the combat like sounds to 100%, no matter what you wanted. So, that was a bit distressing for me last time. So install some mods, and hopefully this time around it'll be tolerable. So, but yeah, I forgot to test it, so I don't know what the good volumes are. So you have to let me know if anything needs to be adjusted in any way. Oh, hello. Yeah, I knew it. I was just before fight. I did see those guys there. Right, here we are.
Point me.
Point me. So last time we were playing, we just entered the we just entered the mage tower, hoping to recruit mages and templars for the Grey Warden course. And all the wizards are being attacked by demons. They're like turning into weird little fleshy boys. So they're like climbing the tower.
If you insist.
Oh yeah, I'm not casting an ability, I'm just reading chat, I can't do that. Well, can I? I think I'm doing fine. Despite the game being very loud. I guess I might have want to install the older mod that's got like an even more aggressive like reduced volume on the combat music, combat sound effects. Cause woofer. Jeez.
Yeah, that's right. What about it?
Was that Alistair that's saying, yeah, that's right? His delivery on that was amazing.
As you wish.
I feel like the tactics we set last time working out pretty alright. Things are like dying without me putting in too much effort this time. I had to put in so much effort I felt last stream into like this fight. I just had to like do so many things manually, it was a pain in the ass. I feel like GD audio is the one thing I never need to seek feedback on. You just hear about it. True. I at least in this case, I am hearing that. Like, wow, it's really loud and shitty. Unless you're me and the stream is unwatchable and James and Vic are making fun of you, then you go to sleep every night paranoid you breathing too loud. Well, at least, and I can trust Vic at least that like if I have a very loud PlayStation in the background or something, he'll let me know. He'll let me know if I need a 20-meter cable to stream, or like a spare computer that can stream a PS4. But he has not been aggressive yet, so we'll see if the dialogue is quiet. So far we're good. Okay. Okay, so if the dialogue is good now, we're good. We're good.
Thank you. That was an uncomfortable experience.
What do you know about discomfort, Tranquil? Oh, hello. Statue. That's gonna be the last step for the puzzle. Yes, it is. Ah, shit. Because we were working on a puzzle last time, I couldn't solve it. I figured that like this reason must be that this isn't just the whole solution isn't available yet. Oh, rude. I'm in a snap trap. Get me out of here. Messed up.
Hey! Too easy!
I'm.
Oh yeah, the square away thing. Yeah, squaring away Threadripper. That was funny. Like Threadripper is so expensive as well. It's just so unnecessary. For what he was doing, at least, it was a good meme. Temple Helm. I think you can wear that.
What
Alistair.
now?
Yeah. That's very good. Hey, you're just wearing like a crappy leather helmet right now. Yay, that's great for you. Good. We do need a mage appropriate hat for Win as well. No, not Win. For Morrigan, like what Win has. Okay, so well, it was a room over here thing. Yes, here. Let's really rack my brain on this thing. So I think it was like bowl.
Going.
And it's really hard to know if I've actually done it properly or not, because it doesn't give you any feedback. But I think if you just... Now it has done something. There's no feedback whatsoever, but I think that worked. If I don't get zapped here, then it works. Yeah. Actually, there might have been a very subtle sound though. Maybe, like a very slight sound. Yes. Yeah, there is like a little shuffle. Kind of sounds like a brick being moved or something. There's like no statues here. Who's going here? This might not be the last statue, so I should keep looking after this, I guess. But touch this one. Oh no, that's something. A low rumble signals the lowering of ancient protections. Something is free in the lowest levels of the tower. Oh shit. Oh, whoops. What have I done? What have I done? Have I killed the kids? Ah, frig. Might have killed the kids. They were in the lowest level of the tower. One page. Jokes are new. I'm not reading that. Cool story, Codex, but who asked? Oh my god. I might have found who asked. What the hell is this? That's a lot of guys. Hang on. What if we just don't fight them? No, don't freeze me. Stop it. No. No. Do this. Alright. Here's the plan. Alistair, you're door boy. Door boy 1. Let him go in and then you close the door. Close the door. Close the door. No, closing the door doesn't work. It was a valiant try though. I really gave it my all though. Let's cast all your heals and stuff on Alistair. God, the grunts, man. Everyone's grunting up a storm. Who invited Gruntilda to the party? This is getting out of hand. I just run out of resources like instantly. Like they really just like let you chew through your mana as fast as you want. Well, 1 second. Oh, it's gonna. There we go. Ooh, yeah. That's the sound it's playing right now. You're right. God, this game, man. You can enjoy his fine bark to the perfect level. It's like not only is it the volume they had the barks at, which is one thing, but like the frequency of them is absurd. They just won't stop playing. Alistair going, oh, you got me. Ah, you really shoved me. Oh, and like, this is non-stop. Like, Please.
Yes.
Yes. The buckled wins. That sounds good. Defense +3. Yeah, I'll take that. Ooh. I kind of like the belt you have on already, but I think this is better. I think. Nah. Well, actually, yes. I think I'd rather have the plus healing received on Morgan rather than Constitution. I think that sounds much better. They shouldn't have too much HP either, so it should be quite easy to heal her up. Yeah, 123. It's like half of Alistair.
All
Oh,
right.
come on. I need that level up right now, man. One corner is 5 HPs. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yes, I'd much rather have 10% healed HP. Yeah, combat. Get it out of here. Yucky stat. No want. So I could climb up now, but I think we'll climb down first. And we'll face whatever creature we summoned. And hopefully it'll give me enough levels so I can level up. And I can get another level of lockpicking. So maybe I can open all the treasure I'm running past. Please help me. Just constantly. Yeah, it's a very that's a very comparable sound. Yeah, that Demon Souls sound of that guy going, please help me. That's only as good as it is because that guy just won't stop yelling. It's such a good level for that. It's just a whole level of Demon Souls. Like, and those levels, you know, you're trapped in those levels for a while, like a good long while, especially if you're dying all the time, you know? And they're big. They're really big. And for a lot of it, you're just trapped in there with the guy saying, please help me, and like screaming. It's so good. See you soon, Kalik. Hope you have a nice, safe trip to the shop. You should get some iron brew for me. I should go get some iron brew soon again. That's some good stuff. I got an excuse now to go to that one place I found just to get some iron brew. Is this the lowest level? I don't know. I do remember spending a lot of time in here. All these books and summoning pedestals. This is the lowest level. Yes, this is definitely the lowest level.
It must have been very difficult for you and your mother, Morrigan, to live always hiding from the Chantry and its hunters.
Oh god,
Your
these guys are
pitying
not getting along.
tone is as unwelcome as it is unnecessary, old woman. There was nothing difficult about our lives in the slightest.
But surely you must have drawn notice from time to time. No matter how powerful you claim to be, you would not wish the full attention of the Chantry.
Hunters did come into the wilds
There's the lowest level.
from time to time.
Ooh, owie. This is fine. This is fine. Jeez. Have we got any more AoEs? Have we got another fireball?
Find many things difficult.
Fireballs with stuns even. Jeez, chill out. Just, yes, everyone sip up. Everyone sip up. Sip it. Sip up.
Your own preference for the Legion,
Probably take an injury kit as well.
where, for instance,
Good as time as any.
There are good reasons.
I feel like once this guy... Oh, never mind. I was gonna say once this guy stops fireballing, we're probably fine. But he's just gonna do more fireballs. I need this group heal. I'm gonna do a Lyrium potion. Oh my god. I let myself get boxed in here. Dude, this is a terrible fucking spawn, man. For this boss here. You're all at the door. You all go to the door, just, you know, to open it. And the guy spawns and fireballs you all because you didn't strategically breach the door like it's Rainbow Six, you know? Woof. What is that? What is that doing? Oh no, it's down here. That's it. He is dead, but right, just run out of there. Don't get fireballed again. Oh, he's... Oh, we got him. Nice. Cool. You know what? I could have gone worse. I took an injury, but really could have gone worse. At least a lyrium potion even. I'm pretty mad about that. Oof. Usaris. Whoa. That's a lot of gems. And that's a big sword. Damage versus dragons. I feel like with a thing like this. With a sword like that. I really gotta bring in Stan, don't I?
Blast and
Yes.
damnation.
Yes. It's done. Yo, I can't wear it. Never mind then. Never mind, it's moot. Yeah, look how much damage he'll do with that.
Vashaden.
Indeed.
In that case, Morrigan's still. I don't think I can ever play without Morrigan anyway though. Like mages are just really good. Like really, really, really strong. Like there's no way. Especially once I get more skills, like corpse explosion stuff. There's just no way I could afford to play without her, I think. Maybe like win or something I can play without. But healing is really good too. I feel like group healing alone, that one skill alone, is like worth it for win to stay at all times. I can't take up my cat, which is kind of a bummer actually. Because I feel like, yeah, if anyone's gonna be kind of disposable, it's me. Oh no, I'm roleplaying too much. I made myself disposable. It's just like real life. Frig. There we go.
I'm off.
I'm off. Bit anticlimactic, you know, doing all of that. Doing all that big puzzle and everything. And all we get is a stinky big sword. At least armor would have been like almost universally useful. But a big sword. I've got one cat, but I don't see myself often using him. I guess you can take Alistair's spot. Probably quite often. Is there formation where people are spaced a little bit more? No, there's no formation. Hi, look. It begins, I think. I think it begins. This is the top, isn't it? Or it may as well be the top. It's very flashy here. Just gonna walk right past that door. Oh! No, that's where it begins, the sloth demon, yeah. Let's do this first. Blood mage. No, thank you, I'll stay
Let's
right
wipe
here.
him out quickly.
Enough.
Not bad.
Blast.
I am ready.
Oh, look! It wants to fight.
What does heroic offense do?
Take that.
Bonus to attack. Oh frig, no, how about bonus to use your skills? Doofus? It should be healing. Heroic aura is the one I want. Oh no, wait, no, that's shrug of missile attacks. That's quite cool. But not what I want. Rejuvenate, that's the thing I want.
Time to die.
So I can get like more stamina, more mana, that sort of thing.
Another call.
I imagine it would be quite good to put Rejuvenate on like Morrigan so that she can do lots of winter blasts. I think. And that's probably the best thing I got going for me right now is that I got that one skill. Another chest I can't open. God, I can't wait to be done with the fade and level up. I can open these chests. There's gonna be so many goodies. At this point, I'm concerned if I can even carry them. I got 5 more, like, equip weights.
All right.
Carry weights. We can do this thing first.
Time. Everything is just as you wanted, my knight. Our love and our family is more than you hoped for.
Unhand him, foul demon.
Do you hear something, love?
It is nothing, my darling. Just the door. I will get it. The children have finished supper. Tuck them into bed while I see who it is.
Don't be long. The children will want to kiss you goodnight.
I will be but a moment, my pet. You are intruding upon a loving, intimate moment, and I dislike disruptions.
It's a very interesting skirt you got on. You have this Templar ensorcelled, don't you?
Happiness.
Is that how you say that word?
There is a certain power in all things mortals delight in. I have given him what he always wanted. Where is the harm in that?
How did you manage this?
I saw his loneliness and longing for a family that loved him.
Apparently, you can get your desire and still suffer horribly. 'Tis truly a lesson for all who consider marriage.
My wife.
How long will you keep him in this?
Anyone, my
Will he
wife?
live when his body fails and death claims him?
A short, blissful existence is preferable to an interminable...
Morrigan was definitely written by a man, wasn't she? The more I'm playing this game, the more I'm like realizing, damn, she was definitely written by a man, and the dialogue was definitely written by a man too. Oh, it really came clear once she made that marriage joke there. Jesus wept. He deserves to be free from me, to find his own happiness.
What happiness? He has gone through life empty, resentful of his vows. You would return him to this? I want nothing from you. I have what I need. All I ask is that you leave us alone.
So that you can drain him and move on to someone else? Nah.
Then you leave me no choice. Help! There are bandits at the door. They're going to murder the children.
They will not get past me.
Okay. Oofa. I figured this is what she was gonna do. So I think the idea here is you probably just want to kill the demon. Maybe the champion corpses before anything else. That's fine. Does the Winter's Grasp do AoE damage? I don't think it does.
An order.
All right.
I'm gonna spam all my spells on her. I think he should be fine.
Now we get our hands dirty.
That's a massive AoE. Who did that? Oh, it's a Templar thing. Ooh, that'd be really nice to get. Wait, I got the demon and I got the demon and he's still messed up. That's rude. Stop that. The demon's dead. Stop that. Come on. I'll kill all the corpses as well and see if that makes a difference.
Run while you can.
Oh, let's have at it.
No mercy.
How long does this last? Activation 30 seconds. Oh, okay. I thought maybe it was gonna be like a bit hard to like get the walking bomb proc off, but it's not hard at all. Oh my god, that's fucking ridiculous. I forgot how ridiculous that is. Jesus, that did so much damage. Holy yo. No, stop that. You're attacking the wrong guy. We do have to put him down.
Begin the honor.
Never mind. I tried. Really tried, really tried. Killed him last demon, even though I shouldn't have. I should have killed him, no, like right after the demon. Never mind, we got the Templar armor. I guess right on Alistair.
I'm off.
I don't know, it feels a bit weird that you get that whole situation and there's like nothing you can do about it. Oh, I'm about to run out of inventory space. Ah, frig. Yep. Yep. That's the problem with this place. Did the Archon robes benefit anyone? 2 magic, 6 defense. Spell power. What is spell power and what is magic? What? Might be better for Morrigan. Yes. He's got cold damage. But I feel like this is gonna be better. Even though she looks ridiculous. Is the shield any good? No. Oh, I jacked someone's shield at some point, didn't I? Or maybe he just starts with a really good shield. Because you do not need this. Yeah, you do not need this. It's just for like projectiles, really, isn't it? Oh, we got a wizard, huh? Do you want the wizard hat, Morrigan? Yeah, you do. I mean, yeah, I guess you do. There you go. You look so dumb. You look terrible. And then we just destroy. Not destroy things. Yeah, tier 1, get out of here. Tier 1, get out of here. Tier 2. Well, I got some space for now. It'll do. Thankfully, I don't know if I'm actually, like, collecting a whole bunch of stuff in the Fade, am I? So I might not have to worry too much about inventory space here. If only there was a vent up here, though, that'd be amazing. Magic is the attribute that governs spell power and other things. That explains everything.
Oh, look, visitors. I'd entertain you, but too much effort involved.
Good, that will make you that much easier to kill.
But why? Aren't you tired of all the violence in this world? I know I am. Wouldn't you like to just lay down and forget about all of this? Leave it all behind.
Can't keep eyes open. Someone pinch me.
This is ridiculous. You cannot expect me to rest on a floor sticky with blood.
It's got some serious dandruff.
You must resist, else we are all lost.
Why do you fight? You deserve more. You deserve a rest. The world will go on without you.
Okay, I see. So magic does many things. Some of those are spell power. So, hang on, is magic like one of the stats? Oh, magic is one of the stats here, I see. I forgot about that. Yeah, okay, I see what magic and spell power is now. So, yeah, level up magic gives you spell power, which is a separate stat. So, like, it's kind of like how there's dexterity, but there's also like attack. I see. I just forgot that they just call it magic. I was more thinking it would be called like intelligence or something, you know? Intellect. Duncan. I'm gonna look at this lyrium bin. Okay. Oh, that's the whole thing in there, isn't it? I forget exactly what it does, but that's a whole thing. Hey, buddy.
Welcome, my friend. We fought the good fight and won.
Yay, nice.
Ah, there you are. I'm not disturbing you, am I?
Wait, you should be dead.
Dead? Me? I have been close many times, but I never quite made it all the way. I just wanted to make sure you were happy here in Weishaupt. These grand halls were built by the first Grey Wardens. Isn't it breathtaking?
For you, maybe. Dead. I don't know, something doesn't seem quite right.
Everything is as it should be. We have eradicated the Darkspawn, and the world is at peace.
That's not right. The world is never utterly at peace.
But now it is, for the first time in history, and you played a part in the making of that history. Do you not remember?
Remember? You remember? No, I thought the Darkspawn would always be a threat.
It was a triumph for all of us, bringing down the Archdemon and setting the underground lairs ablaze.
That's not possible. You're hiding something from me.
Foolish child. I have given you so much and you cast it back in my face. Can you not be content with the peace I offer?
You offer complacency, not peace.
It seems only war and death will satisfy you. So be it. Have your war and your Darkspawn. May they be your doom.
I love Doom, it's a good game.
Let's see. Which one first?
I'll go for Doom first. Oh, that's what the Lyran Vein is for. It's for like healing up in fights, I think. Right? Because I think, yeah, that's it. It refreshes your character. So that you have means of not screwing yourself down here. I was imagining playing the Doom theme right after that. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I was just about to go. What is this? Why is it in a tiny screen? What is that? Oh, I thought it was a talent tree for a second. Isn't there something about these things? I think this is important. Oh, this is for stats later. I think you take these for permanent stats. Can't interact with it. I guess I need another character for it. Oh god, there's so much. There's so many places. Hello. Neal. RJ.
Where did you come from? Are you a demon? No. I see that you're not. You're like me. Congratulations on getting out of that trap.
What about my companions? Are they trapped too?
You came here with others. Then yes, they would be trapped. The demon traps everything that comes here in a dream it thinks they can't or won't try to leave. I thought I'd escape too, but I've been wandering these empty grey spaces for a lifetime.
Who are you?
My name is Njal.
Njal?
I was trying to save the Circle when I encountered the Sloth Demon. I expect our experiences were similar.
Owain mentioned you.
Owain helped me greatly. I suppose I'll never be able to repay him. Litany was our weapon against the Blood Mage's domination. But it's too late. Everyone's dead.
There's still a hope, isn't there?
This place drains you of everything. Hope, feeling, life.
We'll find a way out.
No, there is no way out of here. You think there might be, but you'd be wrong. You see that pedestal?
You think
there?
you might want that, but you don't.
Study the runes on it. Runes that
You don't want to lay you.
signify different islands of the Sloth Demon's domain. The Sloth Demon itself is on the center island, but you can't get there. The 5 islands around the center somehow form a protective ward. I thought I was getting somewhere when I figured that out, and I went to each island in turn only to have my hopes dashed. There's always an obstacle. You'll see the path but be unable to get to it. And it taunts you and drives you mad.
Yeah, no. WoW Classic is already out. You don't have to worry about it. I think I'll go take a look at this pedestal.
You think you'll find a way out, don't you? You believe that? Maker. I believed it too. It seems like eons ago.
How long has he been here? I guess you go through a bit of like an ego death sort of thing in here. Thinking it's been longer maybe. I'll be back.
Don't mind me then.
I'll be back.
Yes.
Go for you? Yes. I can go for you. Oh, hello.
I just want to leave this place. Help!
Oh, it's a little rat man. Oh, I'll be out. Oh, good thing all the enemies are very weak. Oh, everything is giving me experience here. That's nice. And it's very easy. I'll take some easy experience.
Thank you, but too late for me. Kill Yevina, the demoness that rules here. She protects her master, Sloth. There's a door only demons can see. The key must be in another realm. Take my power. Save any others trapped in nightmares. Kill the demons that guard Sloth. Make my
Squeak. Oh. Well, it turns out they're in trouble now, because now I'm the big rat. And it's time for me to make all the rules in here. What's this? Nothing? Oh, look, nothing. It's weird. I feel like I want to interact with these things later or something. No, it's not a rat, it's a mouse. Clearly, can't you see that this is a mouse? A mouse? Okay, actually, maybe... It's just a big mouse is all. It's very, very, very big mouse. Got him. I'm starting to remember why this thing felt so long-winded. It's the there's like so much dialogue, isn't there? You just like constantly get like interrupted. Disturbing statue. It's got floppy hands. And a floppy horns? Do you like that? It's like tentacles coming from your face.
I'm off.
With like tentacle eyebrows. Oh, that's the demon dog. Hello.
Ah, you want to die? Not bad. Ah. Too fast for you.
Wow, I'm doing nothing to this guy. Can you enable this, please? There we go, that's a bit better. Now, owie, I needed that health.
Was there any doubt?
Yes, I was in doubt briefly there. I was a bit concerned. I gotta admit that. Hello. You guys are chumps at least. I don't have a good dagger on this guy, do I? Semi-good. Tier4. It really could be worse. I feel like it would be nice if they give me a solid weapon. They keep giving me like solid weapons for other slots, but not for my rogue. Actually, wait a second.
All right.
I wonder if they're giving me good like... I've been like thinking, oh, I need to use daggers for my rogue, but maybe I don't. Oh, I suppose you might not be able to like backstab with an axe, can you? Right? I wonder if you can even backstab with like a sword. That might be like a dagger only thing.
Something happened, didn't it? You look a little different. What happened?
I became a mouse.
Did you? Did it help? I know I saw the tiny holes. Were you small enough to get through?
Sure was. It was easy.
You're so much braver than I am. I was so sure it was impossible to get anywhere. Do you think you could learn other shapes? Maybe they could help you get to places you couldn't otherwise.
Welcome back, colleague. Enjoy your hot dogs. Backstab works with all weapons, you think? Okay, okay. Maybe I should have considered using like the axe and stuff I got on. Maybe I don't need to use his daggers, because right now I'm like, kind of wish I was using anything but daggers, because I feel like I'm not doing very much damage when I can't backstab. Door? What did you say?
I never thought I'd die like this. In this cold, forsaken place.
Buy? Where's the buy button? I'll just leave you to think about that one.
I don't want it to end like this. Do you feel it? It's getting so cold.
Can I do this? Oh, hang on. Maybe I can teleport elsewhere. Ah, I can. Okay, so don't worry so much about the other stuff in that place. Just go elsewhere. Darkspawn Invasion, Burning Tower, Mages Asunder, Templar's Nightmare. Oh, fuck me. I don't know, like, a good order for these. I don't know if this is, like, Mega Man or anything either, but I don't know where to go. I'll just go here. This is probably where maybe Alice is? It's a Templar's Nightmare, right? It might be another one. I kind of clicked one at random, though. Shit, I clicked one at random. It crashed. Maybe if I clicked one with precision and forethought, I wouldn't have crashed and I would have been fine. They stole me. They're like, oh my god, this guy's getting through the fade too quick. Stop him! No! Stop him! He can't be allowed to get through this. There we go. Mousehole. This seems like a good place to be then. I guess I can check the mousehole first. Oh, fuck me. Who put a maze in here? Essence of Cunning, yeah, I'll take that.
Going.
Yum yum. That's not bad at all for me, actually. That's a really good start for me. Nice. Very happy with that. I just looked up and people say double daggers is better for high dex cannibals. Okay, great. Oh yeah, because that's a thing. Yeah, weapons have different scaling with different different stats.
Behind you!
We're so close to that level.
Now this should be fun.
Your swords are sword dagger, better for strength dex. Okay. Sword dagger build. Huh. That's a weird one. Sounds like World of Warcraft. Okay. I do remember the fire being horrible here. Yeah, it's not. You can't just run through fire. Just a tiny bit, little bit of fire, tiny patch of fire, but you cannot do anything about that.
Or any shortage of these ones.
You're all chumps. It's fine.
Going. Going.
I also got a ton of potions there. Let's be sorted. Oh, although I think it would be a good time for me to use my poisons. Where are they? I should have some. I'll do. Deathroot extract. Yeah, there we go. Am I healing him? No, I think +1 because I'm doing +1 damage, right? Oh shit. Don't kill me while I'm stunned, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Got him. Maybe I should have just killed the wizard first, because apparently he was squishy as hell. He did not take a lot of damage. Oh my god, there was a living right here the whole time. Whoops. Whoops, I need to really scout out where those are. I thought of every encounter. It's a mouse holder. Yeah, I guess that's the next spot. That's not a mouse hole, that's a lyrium vein, you doofus. Poison does heal him, I think? Oh, frig. That explains why my DPS felt bad. Oops. I didn't realize I automatically went into stealth when I was a rat. And I clicked the stealth button.
All right.
Hang on, I need to...
Behind you!
Why aren't I activating dueling? That's weird. I guess it's a quirk with the shape-shifting thing. For some reason, it's not... Oh, it does go into dueling in combat, though. Alright, it's good, it's fine. It's good.
Too fast for you! Yeah. Not bad at all.
You do make all the rules, so really if you don't want it to heal them, it doesn't have to. Yeah, I am the big one, I make all the rules, so I don't know why they're being healed, because it's not in my best interest. I guess I was feeling very, very generous when I did that. Oh, there's nothing in here, just experience points. Well, I do want experience points. I do actually quite want experience points, so it's fine. You're so large for this? Well, just imagine I want to be a rat then.
Must be quiet. Shh. They won't find me here. They won't find me.
Won't find you, but what if they find you?
You
can just fight on me then. Where's the wizard? None of you are wizards. Oh no, that is a wizard. It just doesn't have a specific wizard name. Oh, that guy is dead as hell, isn't he?
Yes.
I don't think I can save this guy.
All right, I'm game.
I wish I could control him. Maybe even heal him.
You wanna die?
No, it's fine. Hang on, wait a second. Where's the living then? Is there any? There isn't any. We gotta heal up them.
Someone tell them to stop hitting me.
How much mana do you have? This guy's got so much healing. Stop it. Oh, it's so tanky as well. Never mind. I'm killing this guy. You're stunned. There you go. Oh, and I got a level. Thank you. I can't believe I'm worried about this guy. He's invulnerable. He's got somebody. He should be teaching me how to survive. I shouldn't be lecturing this guy.
They're gone. You.
The screen effect is so ugly. Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it?
Killed them, but not all. Their leaders are behind the unbreakable door. I give you my wisdom. It will let you see. And now I wake.
Wakey wakey. Oh, it just fucking vanished. Spiritfall. Resilient to magic. Oh, this guy. Yeah, this guy's pretty good. Yeah, it's got the prison, is that, which I remember being good, and it's got the Winter's Grasp, which we know is very good. Cool. More importantly though, I got the level up. I think Dex can stay at 28 for now. She gets more canning, I think. I'm kind of tempted to pick a trap making just for that one quest, but I know that's not worth it at all. What might be worth it is either combat training or combat tactics. Stealing is lockpicking as well, isn't it? No, it's not. It's not. It's not. It's here. Just a combat tactics slot. That's so lame. Well, some of these later ones give like 2 and then 2. But these are just 1 each. That's so lame. I don't really need that right now anyway. Do I need combat training now? Yeah, I actually got a good amount of skills to get before I need combat training, honestly. I'm gonna grab, grabbing stealing. Coercion's good too. I think we'll eventually want coercion for when we go to the castle and do that stuff. I'd like to have some coercion for that. Target's incapacitated. Nah. We want this, so I can go through all these chests. There we go, that's all I wanted. What's this door done? Is it locked? No. That's a teleport here then. What's this door done? Huh. Weird. I think this door here would just be an alternate way to get in here. Right? Oh, does the mouse thing that you skip like a bite here or something? Yeah. Hang on. I feel like spirit form is pretty good. Let's give it a try. I think you're really squishy as a spirit. But I'm a big fan of just with just grasping everything. Yeah, this is much better than my character. It's so much better. Love to play as Spirit, you know, and when I created my character in Dragon Age Origins, obviously everyone knew that I made my character so I could play as this enemy sprite doing wizard spells. That's my favorite. Can I go for fire? No, don't do it. It was wild when you made your rat as your character, didn't matter being an elf for like 20 hours, yeah. What's the deal with that? We all knew you wanted to be a rat, and yet you had to play as this friggin' nerd here for so long. There's another one of these things. Oh yeah, the nightmares. That's where my party members are. So I should be doing this one then. Those things work if you're in spirit form. Oh, that's how it works. Ah, that's and. So look. Do these stats only apply to my main character? Essence of willpower. Or can they give these stats to anyone? I guess if it's willpower, it's garbage. I may as well just take it. Whatever. Can only ever be put on your main guy. Yeah. Good to know. Willpower. Okay, sure. I guess this place is gonna give me some resistance to magic and stuff. That's kind of nice, I guess. I imagine willpower like lets you pass some resistance checks better or something. Stamina? Yeah, mental resistance. I guess it's so you can like be in like stances and have more stamina disposable, but like Look.
Going.
Rite of Annulment. You know what that is. It's when it's like the Crystal Knight for wizards. And the Templars come and like, yeah. About this tower. About that. What's up with these portals? Oh yeah, that is like you teleported to another place in the place. Also. It's basically turning this place into a maze. That's what they are. Fuck me. Oh, you're a wizard too. I'll also be a wizard. Nice. Oh, clumsy! So clumsy. Where did it come from? Was it this one? Was it this one? I think it was this one. Oh, hello, ogre. Is that a scary one though? It's a common one. This is fine. Assisted? Now I'm more concerned. Owie, stop that. Ow! Why is every one of your attacks are stunned? Oh, frig. Oh. Oh yeah, the ogres can do this, that's right. I'm freaking dead, dude. Never mind. I guess that didn't happen. Like literally every single one of its skills was just a stun, and then there was one skill that kills you. Stun pass, maybe. Yeah, I think I could just kill it though. But yeah, there's like. Oh, okay, sure. That's a thing that can happen apparently. But yeah, apparently there's like no easy way of like telling how powerful an enemy is. Maybe I shouldn't use that mouse though. Jesus Christ. I think you have to use spirit form on that guy. Yeah, I was thinking like maybe I should like save my cooldown. Yeah, things were much easier like this. Yeah, you just have to embrace the gimmick if you want to get past this.
Yes.
So far the mouse holes have really not helped me at all. Feels like the mouse holes have just made everything worse, right?
Trap, so simple to see, really.
You can't say that now, that the traps are so easy to see after just stepping in every single trap up to this point. Maybe that's just character development, you know? Maybe that's why it's not the same.
Let's do this quick, shall we?
These guys keep exploding. I love that they just explode on death like it's a Sega game, dude. It's like I'm in some sort of Ernest Evans adventure. What's this then? White wolf. That's fine. I can deal with the wolf.
Yes. I'm off.
There we go. This is more like it.
Much better than that. Let's do this quickly, shall we?
I wish I did some damage though.
Oh, look! It wants to fight!
Take some dice. There we go. Now I can do some damage. What does Julian do again? Well, attack. Yeah, that's good for me. Keep missing with this dogus. I see you chose Smug Jerk as the character voice. He said something. He said something, and I had to pick it. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was like really amazing delivery. He said yes. I think it was like he said yes, much in the same way as like steamed hams, and I had to go for it. I might be making that up. Yeah, nah. I would love to kill Yoga, but it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it at all. Oh, you piece of shit, hunger abomination. You can't see me? What? No, you can see me. What is going on here? Squeak, squeak. Maybe he doesn't care about rats. What is the thing in there? There's a door. This door would require massive force. I remember what the massive force is. Yeah, I guess we're getting that later here. Boom. For the portal again. I'm in combat? What do you mean I'm in combat? With what?
All right.
I guess I'm in combat. Maybe I can cast Winter Scrap or something. Like, that is something that is quite annoying with this game, is how it's treating, like, combat? Like, being in combat? Like, an enemy being unaware of you, but you are aware of the enemy, means you're in combat. And that just feels so wrong, right? Like, shouldn't be the other way around it. An enemy is aware of you, hence combat. Why is it like this? Should I have to fight the ogre? Is that what it's saying? Oh shit, I'm freaking dead now though. So I'm not gonna regen. I guess I can heal up in spirit form. Can't even leave, can I? Can I? Oh yeah, there comes the ogre. Oh shit. Oh frig. Oh frig. Oh shit. Oh, hang on. No. Yeah, you miss. Yeah, you miss, pal. Cage the ogre. Is the ogre caged? The ogre's caged. Let's go. Okay, there we go. That's how we did. That's what I wanted to do before. That's why I didn't want to, like, kill the wizard as a wizard. Because I wanted to save my cage for the ogre. But then I kept dying to the wizards. I just had to use all my skills anyway. There's a pause at the start of combat in this one too. Yeah, I did actually enable that, yeah.
Good going.
That's an optional option. This can go through here. There's two portals I could go through. Because I came in here through the mouse hole, didn't I? Wait, what? Oh, it loops. I see. So I guess I will go through here anyway then. Yes. That's where I killed a wizard, so I haven't been here then. No, I have. I haven't been here. Oh, book? Experience points. Combat begins when an enemy see you. If you see them, you get a pause and chance to think if you want to stealth or back off or whatever. Okay. And if I don't take that chance, then... But still, I think it's absurd that if you don't take the chance to, like, stealth, you're in combat. Even though no enemy is aware of you. You just, like, unsheath your weapons and you're like, I'm in combat now. No enemy is aware of you. No one actually cares about you being there. You're like, oh, I'm in danger. I'm in danger. There's a guy in another room that's minding his own business right now. I don't think I can do anything here. That makes sense. That's a lot better for stealth. Always felt really tacked on the kind of uses in this game. I've been saying that, yeah. I've been feeling that stealth feels really strange in this. It's not useful in any way. I feel like what I'm doing right now, this is the only place in the game where stealth does something. It just feels like they made the stealth for like a different kind of game. They're like basing the stealth on like how you would stealth in like Far Cry or something, like a single player, like, not single player, a single character game. You know? When you have a party, the stealth just feels so worthless. It's not even like you need stealth to see traps or anything, I don't think. Oh, the cast time on that. Oof. That's terrible. I think stealth can get aggro if you fuck up that in combat. Yeah, I think so. But you need to level up stealth to level 3 before you can do that. Because you can only stealth in combat once you leveled it up a few times. At that point, I think stealth is going to be useful. So I will invest in stealth. But like up until then, stealth feels like a really awkward part of my kit, and I feel like I may as well just run my guy into fights. There's no need for me to like set up like some sort of backstab ambush or anything like that, because you don't get a benefit like that. I mean, often I just kind of got spotted anyway, right? Because stealth was just kind of bad.
Yes.
Like I may as well just position my guy for a backstab after the fight started and just run in there and get more damage in early on in the fight.
Shall we? Too fast for you.
Yeah, it's still the same +1 there. Yeah, so you're right. Yeah, that's like nature damage. That's why it's green. But those guys have the like orcs have like resistance. So I guess I shouldn't be thinking about poisons and stuff necessarily against them. I guess since I'm already doing small amounts of damage anyway with poison, it might not be at least like just a damage type poison. It might not be too bad using poisons against them, but like poison magic would probably be quite bad against them. I guess if there's some sort of poison that like I want to use because it slows down an enemy or something like that, some sort of effect you can pass a check on, then poison would be quite bad. Well, I suppose like taking the nature damage in the first place would probably be some sort of poison check, right? So I guess I'm going to be doing less damage against someone with poison resistance probably. There's nothing in here. I guess I'm going up here.
I'm off.
Yeah, I think I need massive force for that door there.
Good going.
Nothing in this game is weak to poison. A few things are resistant to immune. Seems not amazing. Yeah, that's wacky. Consider you can invest. Oh no! Oh shit! Am I fucked? Oh frig! Oh, this is scary. Alright, just gonna make sure I'm topped off. I'm gonna use a poison actually. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Oh, this does 2 damage. That's not bad. Yeah, consider you can spend quite a lot of like level up points into poison. It feels quite bad that you can you don't really get anything worth it out of it. I guess it might be one of those like social skills, maybe more so. Are there like a lot of like checks on like to do this quest you need to have poison? Maybe it's one of those things. It's basically on par with like stealing, you know.
Not bad at all.
But this poison here feels like it's actually not that bad. I'm adding like 2 damage per attack, and I'm attacking quite fast. So that feels quite reasonable. I think I'd take poison over like traps, right? The trap making skill sounds quite bad. Like maybe useful in like niche circumstances, but it sounds like a pain in the ass to set up like a trap ambush, you know? It's not exactly like convenient to control your whole party to set up an ambush with traps.
Must control anger, but it bubbles. It
What the hell's that?
burns. You must
Burning demon.
die.
Oh, I should have used Splinter Scarp on him instead. I did try to target him instead, but it didn't register, I guess.
The anger.
Oh, never mind. I'm good.
Fading. I am free. Take Ragos' power. Use it and burn him. Burn them all. He guards Sloth. He bars the way. You must destroy the door. Other dreamers. Other powers. Only way.
Gotcha. Is that a firepower? It is a fire. Oh, this guy, Burning Man. I forgot about Burning Man. Run through fire. Cool. Okay. By power of Burning Man, you may now run through fire. I gotta return here. You gotta return to all of them in the end, don't you? Poison Mech is good because you get fire damage on other damage types today, that's all. Never mind then, yeah, okay. I figured poison would largely be nature damage, but yeah, if it's all sorts of damage types, then yeah, that's definitely worth it. Definitely good stuff. Gotta figure out what those ghost doors are for at some point. Oh, I was gonna like do a break at some point and I freaking totally forgot. And now it's like, we're much overdue for a break. Much overdue for a break. Well, at least if you look at the time, I just rounded the hour. So you could say, I'm actually not overdue for a break. And it's actually fine. So I just got Burning Man. Maybe this is a good time for a break. 2 breaks back to back. Sure, why not? I don't have a specified time for how long one break is, but I'll give you 2 breaks of indeterminate amount of time for each break. Put a little save here. Save game, save stream 4. So, cool. I guess we'll be run through this level, see if there's anything I can find behind any fire. I'll go through the fire and the flames now on expert mode, and we'll see if we find any more goodies and stats. Yeah, Fade not going too bad. It's a bit tedious, but things are going well here. Cheers for joining the stream. I'll be back in like a couple of minutes. Be right back, everyone. See y'all soon. Hello. Hello, I'm back, everyone. Hello. Welcome back, everyone. Where am I? There I am. Hello. What? Ren. We become the Burning Man. Time to run through the fire, I guess. Through the fire and flames. No, I already said that. But it's still as true, though. Hello, Kulik. Hello. I don't think there's anything in here. I kind of want to run around all over this place, but I kind of think there's nothing here. I guess this is just a convenient place for you to demo your new fire powers. I was working a lot yesterday on drafts in my flat, and I did find one spot where I identified a bit of a draft coming through. And I did seal that with some of that stuff, you know the anti-draft stuff. You put in the thing, in the crack. Just say some of that stuff. It still feels a bit cold. That's probably just because right next to me there's 3 massive windows, so maybe I won't be able to completely get past the draft-free life. I don't know if it's really a draft. I think it's just sort of cold next to the windows, unfortunately. That's winter. It's been like a minus 15 degrees Celsius here past few days. It's been like minus 20 in some parts of Trondheim. Quite cold. Quite cold. Feels colder than this as well, because there's a lot of wind in Trondheim. Especially when you're, next to the fjord. Oop. Not that I am, but it does feel like the weather reports usually say something like, yeah, it's like minus 13 or minus 15 or something, but it does feel like minus 20. So watch out. Wrap yourself in tin foil like a baked potato, stay warm all winter. I should. That sounds very festive. What's more festive than being a baked potato? Nothing. Walking around the flat opening magic packs. It's me, Magic Mike, with my magic packs. My magic 6-packs of stuff you put in your window. Is that what you call it? Do you actually call it like magic packs or something? It's a good name. I might try another thing for my windows. Has anyone tried like some foil? You put on your glass, and it like it's supposed to insulate more. I was curious about trying that. I don't know if it'll actually like do much here. Cause I got old windows, but they are like 3-layer windows, or what you call them. So might not be able to insulate much more than that. I don't know. I did ask someone else about what they thought about something like that, and they said, "Oh, it might be good, might not be, but probably mostly for windows that are like one layer window, just like glass." God, I'm glad my window is not just friggin' glass, dude. That would be horrible.
Another point for me.
It's 2 Celsius right now, which is about fridge temperature, thankfully. Nice. I'm fucking dead. What? Excuse me? Yeah, fridge temperature outside, that's convenient. That's convenient, isn't it? Maybe you should just, instead of having a fridge, you could just put all this stuff outside. There we go. Sorted. Dude, what if they mailed you back though? Like, please repair my fridge. What if it like, dude, it's fridge temp outside. Just put your food outside, lol. No.
Combat. I must have.
God, those wizards are hard though. They messed me up even when I paid attention. It's gonna put all my fridge food in a basket hanging out the window. I mean, you don't have a balcony or anything, do you? Like even like a tiny balcony maybe? That would be quite nice. Ground floor, yeah. Yeah. A balcony is quite nice for that sort of thing, but I feel like usually quite lucky to have like a nice balcony and terrace.
Yes.
Dude, this mages are horrible. I hate them. Stop it. Thankfully, super squishy, but I don't like the spells at all.
Let's do this quickly, shall we?
Yeah, the whole world is a balcony, dude. Just open a door, there's a balcony. You got the biggest balcony in the world. It's just that easy, man. What is this? Magic. Oh! That's cringe. It's embarrassing. Yeah, it's interesting that it's hotter all the way up north in the UK than no wait, no, you're both in Scotland. Maybe I don't know. That's weather, I guess. I don't know. I'm no weatherologist. I'm not gonna make up any reasons for why it's warmer up there than down there. Without disclosing where both of you are from. I don't know, Gulfstream or something maybe Gulfstream though? Could be, I don't know. Oh, I keep almost dying to these mages.
Any more of them around? Oh, good.
Why are they giving the mages beds like this? I thought it was a bunk bed for a while. But no, it's a bed with a bed roof on it. Kind of looks like a Dahi in Shards, like a safety bed. Except like, there's like a magic hex that get put on you when there's an earthquake instead.
It's going.
Oh no, not the servant. The servant skill. Oh. Actually, these guys are pretty hard. These guys are way tankier than the mages were. Uncharted wilderness to the north. Me too. For the northerners over here. The movie Northman is it's just like me for real. Oh my god, I'm getting messed up pushing.
All right.
Sheesh. Why do you need a bookcase this tall? Hang on, wait a second. I didn't think about it, but how high is this roof? Oh my god, there's not ladders inside anywhere. What is this? Who designed this? This is ridiculous. Totally absurd. Just decadence, really. These mages had it too good. They're like whining, like, wow. The Templars have got us imprisoned in this tower and we can't leave, wow. And look at them. They got a big old house. You're only 3 books tall? Yeah, like, I do feel so tiny next to the bookshelves. Wait a second, look at his books. Look at his massive tomes. Holy shit. Oh, look a baby. I mean, like, if you look at this bookshelf, it doesn't look like a massive bookshelf. look how, like, each shelf is massive, but it kind of just looks like, you know, a Billy from IKEA. So all I'm seeing here is just a tiny little guy, just a tiny little birthday boy. Oh my, I fucking died. Every time I look away from the screen for a moment, I just fucking die, dude. No, I'm all the way back here. I can't look away from the screen. I can't. I just look away from the screen and I run into fire. Oh, there's mages, so fuck me. It's instant death, man. Why do you get instantly killed by the fire? That's bullshit. That's so messed up, man. I think I get higher resistance to magic while I'm in a spirit form, right? Yeah, okay, so that is the way to do this then. Fine. I'm playing your game now. Video game. I will use magic as well. Yeah, that did nothing to me this time. Slop. Slop. I got you this time. Oh my god, this is completely healed up. This is so rude. Stop it. This guy's got enormous slaps, but he can't hit anything. Yeah, I needed magic. Is Burning Man good? Oh, you got Fireball. Wait a second.
Especially each other.
The solution is kill everyone.
Should have just let him shoot each other first, actually, before I did that. Actually, I don't think I have to do it. Yeah, no wait. Yeah, they're dead. Yeah, that was cool. Who knew? Fireball, pretty good skill. Alright, quick save. Please. Please save. I don't want to do that again. I wonder what my most played game this year was. Probably Elden Ring, but after that I'm really curious what it'll be. I'm guessing mine... Shit, I don't actually know mine. It's either gonna be Guilty Gear Strive or WoW. Probably WoW. Xenoblade 3 was your most played game? I can believe that. That doesn't not surprise me in the least. I wonder if I can like track that on Steam. A Steam doing like a Steam recap? They should. Hang on, yeah, why aren't Steam doing that? Wait a second, they should do that. That'd be fun. I'd love that. That just sounds like good marketing for them as well, because everyone's gonna like post their Steam accounts and like what games they played and shit. That's just like people posting like, yeah, I bought these games, I played these games for hundreds of hours. That's a free idea for Volvo. I'm not gonna charge anything for that today. Ooh, I played a ton of Final Fantasy 12. Like a lot. But there's no way that Final Fantasy 12 is gonna beat out WoW or Strive. I mean, Strive came out like June of last year, and I got like 700 hours in it. So there's a good chance. Rage demons. Are these gonna are these vulnerable to fire? Damien. Who the funk it? Yeah, I can see Final Fantasy being one for you, Pellic. I mean, like, if you didn't say like one specific game, you could definitely say Final Fantasy, right? Like just as a series. Because how many Final Fantasies did you finish this year? Did you start this year? I feel like you started this year, so you've done like what, 9 Final Fantasies? Yeah, it'd be number 1, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Final Fantasy good. You heard it there first. No. That being said though, I am extremely lukewarm on Final Fantasy 16. I'm the most lukewarm I've been of any Final Fantasy game on 16. And I don't get it. Oh shit, I have no mana. Hang on, I gotta potion up, I think. Unless there's lyrium? There's lyrium back here. I'm just gonna run to lyrium. No, you can't catch me! I'm the Burning Man! No! They could catch me, they're fucking wizards. I should have just potioned up. Trailer looked kinda nice. Maybe, I don't know. I guess the trailer. Nah. I don't know what I'm like more unconvinced by, because the combat definitely like is not something I'm after at all. But then when I look at the trailer, like the story trailers, I'm also like, I don't know. This interests me, but it just looks like they're not making a game for me this time around. Why did it do that? Rude. Like, I get it. Like, it was good for me that you fireballed yourself, but also I'm a bit like upset that you fireballed it. Sort of glad it seems to have a bit more fantasy feel than a weird road trip twin game. Yeah. I mean, I guess so. I guess I didn't mind that game much. I didn't play like aesthetically at least. I at least like I didn't love the character designs, I guess, because every character looked kind of the same in 15, and I thought that was a bit boring. But otherwise, I thought like the idea was okay. 16 just looks so generic to me. It looked so generic, and usually I feel like Final Fantasy does quite well at being fantasy while not being generic. There's some of them that are like sort of generic to Final Fantasy games. Did that make sense? Like 13 is, you know, as everything you expect a Final Fantasy game to be. There's no like surprises, while being simultaneously different to a lot of like fantasy games.
Let us play a game.
But 16 looks so generic. Owie, stop that. Actually, no owie. There's not owie at all. That's fine. I'm totally fine. Oh wow, it's not fine for you though. You're dead. You just played yourself. You played not only yourself, but also the game and yourself. And the game. Nice. Any goodies? No? Okay. Excellent. That was a fight that looked kind of intimidating, easily dealt with. Best place for that. Oh, no, Elden Ring has got to be up there for me. I forgot. I did actually play Elden Ring for a good amount. Yeah. I mean, if I'm counting only games that came out this year, it's Elden Ring for sure, 100%. It's like Elden Ring, and I don't know how long I played Dragonflight. I mean, Dragonflight just came out. So it can't be that long. So I can't really count WoW for games that just came out this year, because Dragonflight only just came out. Help me! Immediately gets fireballed. Oh fuck, this event looks dire. Oh, I hate this. I'm just gonna run around till I can fireball them again. You can count it if you played it that much. I guess I haven't played Dragonflight that much, honestly. Honestly.
It is time for this dream to come to
I'm gonna guess I'm up like 20 hours or something like that right now.
It will be of little use against the demon that rules here, but perhaps it will help in other realms. Find a way to kill all the demon lords to open the way to Sloth. Free us all from this nightmare!
Bye! Free us all! And he just slides off screen. Rock form. Ah, this rocks. Love the fade. I love this little guy. this walk cycle. Just like... It's a funny little guy. Oh. I see. I thought I was gonna break down a door or something, but no. You can just walk through some doors now, I guess. Mega Fist. Is that what I just said? Did I just say Mega Fist? Mage Fist, maybe. Maybe it said Mage Fist. Thought for sure I said Mega Fist. Oh, nap time. No, stop stunning me. Stop it. Yo, wizard, can you please come over here a second? There we go. I can hurl you. Wow! Oh, I hate these stuns. Stop! They can't stop this constantly stunning everything. Dude, man, it's horrible. It's so rude. Please. Cage him? Thank you. What the? And you're dead. Got him. Oh, hello. I didn't see that. Oh, no, I thought it was a stat. I thought it was gonna give me spirit. I don't know if that's actually a stat, but I thought it was gonna give me it. Oh no, you do break the walls, I see. I just happened to go into a wall that wasn't a wall you could break. Is it going kind of bad? What does he do? Just very tough. Okay. I guess it's, you know, I may be slow, but watch me go. At least now that I got all the forms, I'm basically done now, right? I got like 3 boss fights, probably, something like that. It's like one more level I have to do. That might be it. I forget which levels I've done and which I haven't. Hello? What if you come outside here instead? You can't hurl me. I'm behind. You hurled me? You did it anyway. That's bullshit. No, don't do. Oh, stop! And there's 2 of them. I'm about to get so stunned. You can't catch me. I'm the Burning Man. Bye. I'm out of here. Until I get the next fireball. There we go. Man, that's how we get through these parts, man. These cheese with your best abilities. Like, no need to, like, waste time, like, actually fighting anything. Just spam those fireballs and spirit cages. Can I get this as this form? I can. Okay. Just no need to be just a spirit then. Oh, hello. That's more experience points. Yum yum. I haven't really explored this floor a whole lot. I feel like a garden that actually have all these forms. Oh my god. Bring off with these golems, man. Fuck off. Oh god, I hate this so much. It's so annoying. Wait a second. They aren't that tanky actually. Never mind. The enemy golems are pretty squish. They're just annoying because they keep stunning me. Oh, the range or not? Wait, you got like infinite range on this guy? Holy hell. That's a lot of damage. Oh, I can go for the spiritual now. Interesting. Is that like a shortcut? Maybe I can do that now to have like all the forms or something. Oh, you can repeat it. You can like infinite combo someone. At least I've had more stamina. Kind of run out of stamina after I did like 2 or 3 massive abilities there. In theory, being a backstab lord against a rock dude should be a disaster. Yeah, like there's a high potential for this to be miserable, but they thankfully made the enemies pretty squish. Oh, I can open his doors. I just have to be the spirit. Oh, fuck me. What is this? It's fine as well. It's just is that. I think the Burning Man form is better at the backstabbing than I am. Yeah, it does like a lot more damage. Wait, what? Did I manage to cheese it and get twice the dex? Maybe. I might have. What's that? Cunning. Oh, fuck this. Oh, fuck this. Hang on. Let's move a cage to be off cooldown before I go in there. Otherwise I'm gonna be so sad. No, Dolly. No, no stunning. Wait, hang on. Why am I this guy? Must have pressed the shortcut, I didn't mean to though. I didn't mean to shapeshift though. I just wanted to do winter grasping. There we go. Hang on, these guys are way tankier than the other ones. Do they have like random amounts of health? Or like at least like some have way more health than others? I think these guys are taking forever to kill compared to some of the other ones. Stop that! God, I hate the slam. It always makes you think I'm actually gonna be able to get my hit off as well, and then it like slams me at the last possible moment. It sucks. Bonk. Oh, can't get through the massive door, of course, because I spent my whole fighting. Stroke of genius on their part, though, to reuse the ability for breaking down the door. That's brilliant. Oh, hello. Dex and a con, and I don't even have to do anything? That's sick. Yum, 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 yum. Is there a puzzle here? Considering what's going on in this room. There's like a bunch of braziers? Is that what they're called? Braziers? Torches. On this mullet. This is gonna be a puzzle. Nah. God, there's still more. Bunch of brazzers. That's exactly right. That's the one I was thinking about. Guess I do have to check out this other part as well. I mean, if I left like potential stat upgrades behind, you know, that'd be horrible. I'd be so upset. Oh no 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 no! Why? This feels awful to control. Oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. I'm pressing 1. I meant to press 2. So I keep forgetting my binds. Wait, what?
All right, I'm game.
I guess it resisted the stun. It's kind of just resisting everything here. Oh no, I'm gonna die into this fucking golem. Please, please no. No, the region saved me. I'm good now. I'm good. Phew. It's gonna be massive egg on my face though. Yeah, the Burning Man seems to be they're doing way better melee than not being Burning Man. I guess there's just no reason. What? Squeeze me?
Is that all my blood?
I think I have the potion here. This sucks. Stop! I'm getting out of here. I'm just gonna spam hurl on them and fireballs while leaving. No, I don't have any stamina because I didn't regen before going to the fight. It's all good. We got him. Yeah, Burning Man is just doing knife attacks, but it's still doing like 3 times the damage I'm doing as his stone golems. It doesn't look like it's doing fire damage or anything either. It's not like red text on the numbers. It's just doing tons more damage. Can I see stats or anything? Nope. God, I love that it's called the Burning Man. I can't get over that. XP. Might be able to get oh, strength, nice. Might be able to get another level in here, depending on quests and bosses, right? That'd be pretty nice. Although I kind of feel like I'm depriving the rest of my party of like kind of everything right now, right? They're not getting any experience points. They're not getting any of the stats I'm getting. Oh fuck me! There's so many fights in here. If there's anything I feel like Dragon Age Origins should maybe chill out on, it's probably the combat, right? But that is like the opposite lesson they took from this game, isn't it? Aren't there like way more fights in Dragon Age 2? I hear something about like random encounters in 2. Like ninjas like dropping on you or something. I never actually played 2. I played a demo. And I was like, wow, this plays like a console game. And I was like, I guess it looks kind of cool. Combat looks kind of cool. I never played it. I wonder why. I wonder if it was like console exclusive or something for a while. Because I can guarantee you that if I wanted to play a PC game back then, I would have played it. I think that's everything. Yeah, okay, we looked at everything, yeah. Yeah, this floor was huge, holy hell. Well, I guess every floor might have been big too, but this time I managed to actually see the whole floor, as opposed to the other places I've been to at this point, where I haven't been able to do that. So I killed a demon here, does that mean I can go to this thing now? Yeah, soon. I can go here eventually now. I think the Inner Sanctum last though, after doing these ones here. Okay, I think I've been to all of these now. But I need to like finish all of them now, so I guess we do repeats now. I guess that's where this place really like falls apart, isn't it? Like it'd be fine just doing all of these like once, but when they make you do it twice, that's like, that feels like that's tedious, isn't it? Like backtracking through this whole place and doing it again, but now you got more powers and you gotta like find like where you could use your powers, I guess. But I don't remember that at all. Did I just loop? Yeah, I just looped. Did I just loop again? God damn it. Half the mouse. Yeah, this is different. Oh, hello. Is this something I can do now? Might have been able to do this anyway. No, I've not been here. Cool. Assisted. Oh, I guess these guys don't care much for fire. Oh, they're really squishy. Yeah, let's just slash them. That's the way. Let's do the spirit door first, I think. And then I'll break the door after. Where am I? Oh, I've been here. Wait. No, maybe I haven't. Maybe I just like uncovered this area on map now because I'm here right now. Kind of looks like I've been here. But I would have killed these enemies if I'd been there, right? Must have exploded, so they're just being outside or something. Oh, isn't the Witch like re-release happening today? I think it's today, right? I think I played Witcher 3 a little bit too recently to replay Witcher. But I've been thinking of like having a like a solo Witcher 3 playthrough at some point. So it's so different playing a game on stream versus off stream. And I suppose I'll be able to play the re-release then. Should be quite fun. It's like the sort of next gen PS5 release, console release, you know. Imagine it has like ray tracing lighting as well, right? Not actually sure about that one. Might have a go at that. Nice. Yeah, let me know how you think about that. What your experiences with the special edition. I guess it's been a while since Witcher 3 came out. It's kind of funny for me to like have like a new edition of Witcher 3 because I feel like I just played that game, but I guess it's quite the old game now, isn't it? Like a 2016 one or something? Might be, maybe 18. No, it might be like before 2016. I don't know. December 14th, so tomorrow. Yeah, yeah. That'd be very interesting. 2015. Fuck. That's so long ago. What's the name of the statue? Is it just a statue? It's just a statue. What's up with this area then? Oh, hang on, there's a mouse hole there. There's a mouse hole. Just gonna make sure I don't die to this fire. Oh, it's extremely not useful mouse hole. I guess if you can't break down this door with the golem, it's a useful one. But I can. Oh, this is new. There we go. Oh, I was just in time to not fucking die to fire. Convenient. Shit, that's the wrong button. Oh, good. I didn't take consequences of my actions at least. I hate that the one button, you know, the button I expect to have like the most, you know, frequently used skill is my unshapeshift button. It's very confusing. Don't like it. Oh my god, those wizards are so squishy. Didn't think it was gonna die from just one fireball. Just updated. Was that a demon? Okay, that was easy. Oh, hello. No, there's something. There's something. It's a little fella in there. Little guy.
Catch me if you can. I know you want.
Yeah.
The game isn't over, mortal.
Actually, so he's gonna summon a bunch of stuff, right? What are you gonna summon? Cursed Dance. No, never mind. You're done. No! What? Oh, rude. Weakness to ice. I guess I can just stay as this guy then. Well, actually, I'll go to Burning Man. Oh, that was a bad idea. At least I wasn't in Burning Man form there when she did the ice attack. Oh, I'm freaking dead. I'm extremely stunned right now. Cool game. That's a cool game. Well, I was stunned for like what? I'm gonna say a whole minute though. Thereabouts a whole minute. That's the wrong way, I think. I don't know, I'm kinda lost. Yeah, it was.
Catch me if you can. I know you want.
I got you. I literally caught you, I clicked you. I should have picked you up and held you up like an ice cream cone. I'm throwing rocks tonight. I'm a rock thrower. Gonna stack my stance. No curse stance for you. Try again though. No, rude, stop that. No. I guess this is the way. She's just gonna cast a bunch of spells and, well, if you have a shit ton of health, you'll be fine. Oh my god. Dude, fuck Witch's Grasp. Terrible PvP zone, no one liked it. Actually, Witch's Grasp was kind of fun. I was into it. I had a good time though. But fuck it, I hate it. Stand to hold zone here. You know what? I'm just gonna say this. I'm just gonna say that this is the whole zone. Should I though? Yes, this zone was horrible. I hated this zone. Despicable. So annoying. Just like random ass teleport maze level design everywhere. Oh, gross. I'm getting out of it. There might be goodies in there, but I'm not going back. The fade can just fade from a collective memory sooner if it didn't go there. Absolutely. Good point. Oh, Plymouth. I've come choosing the exact same attire today. What's going on here?
Away, away with you. I shall have no more of your pestering.
I am your mother. Do you not love me?
You are as much my mother as my little finger right here is the Queen of Ferelden. I know you, Fade Spirit. You cannot fool me.
Are you more clever than your own dear mother? Surely such pride must be punished.
That's pretty messed up. That's rude as hell.
There! That is for not showing respect.
That is far more like it, but it is too little too late, Spirit. 'Tis you at last. Come and rid me of this vexatious spirit. I weary of being prodded.
Why is she prodding you?
You ask me? It cannot even read my mind well enough to form a decent copy. Yet it hounds me still.
She doesn't even acknowledge.
Amateur spirit.
Oh, mother, my heart, it breaks.
Oh, slay it, and quickly. Even the true Flemeth was never as annoying as this.
That was easy. Very easy. Good job, Morrigan. Thank you. Can I cage you? No! Stop that! Alright, let's try again. Can I cage you? Oh my god, I can. Well, that's easy then. That's very easy then, in that case. Good job, Morrigan.
Away, away with you. I shall have no more of your pestering.
I am your mother.
Wait a second.
Do you not love me?
What are you doing right now? What?
'Tis you at last. Come and rid.
I'm coming.
'Tis about time.
Oh, okay. I see.
What is this? No, not this again. I refuse.
Okay. It was a little buggy. Yeah. I guess you're not supposed to talk to Morrigan again. You're just sort of supposed to wait for her to talk to you. But I'm in a hurry. I'm getting out of the fade. Oh, it's very strange. Alright, so there's oh, what's a big level? There's some stuff in the southwest, and there's some stuff in the north. I'll start south, I guess. There I go, burning again. I love how Morrigan deals with demons in this. It's really great. She's been a wizard forever, so this is all just the same old shit, and she knows exactly what's going on. Yeah, it's clever. Yeah. Yeah, that was a good scene. I like that. Like, not only did you know that, like, that was definitely like a spirit, but you know, like, exactly what the spirit was trying to do as well. Like, it was probing for information. That was great. I'm happy I had, like, Morrigan in my party, so that we'd get the Morrigan scene now. Oh, fuck. It would be interesting to have the Sten scene, though. Would I have gotten, like, a, Sten, like, in the Nightmare, if I had approached the Sloth Demon with Sten? I wonder what that's like. Because I've got, like, a sort of vague idea of what's going on with Sten, but, I'll be interested to see what this Nightmare is. I kind of want to see, I might like look up a video of that after this. And remember, I never used Sten, he's so squishy and bad. Yeah, that was my experience. I mean, the party I've got right now is basically how I played all of Dragon Age Origins back in the day, I feel. I just played as the first characters you got in the game, basically. Plus, like, maybe Win. Because Win has some pretty nice spells. I just feel like our healer is just really, really useful. I never played with Shale. Is Shale shit, what did they call it back then? Did they call it online pass? You had to like pre-order or something like that to get like some characters in Dragon Age, right? No, did the Golem? I never saw Shell then. I never saw Shell, but yeah, you talked about Shell before and said they're cool, so I look forward to seeing them. There's also like another character, some sort of like elf highwayman, some sort of bandit, and you only get them if you got the online pass or something like that. I never played with them either. The rogue guy, yeah. Because that was a thing, like 10 years ago. Like they were like, for some reason they were like trying to charge people for playing online, right? Or something like that. And this isn't even an online game, but there was like some content that was like locked off unless you did specific things. Zevran, yeah, that's it, Zevran. He's the exact guy you're playing as right now, so I probably want to have to hit this run, yeah. Yeah, maybe when I play a wizard run or something, I could use Zevran. But, not particularly useful to me because you're always locked to playing as your main character, aren't you? So not very useful, unfortunately. Like Mass Effect also had an online pass thing, didn't it? There was a character that was locked up there too. Oh yeah. Wasn't that the whole thing in Mass Effect 3? Where you needed to have the pass or pre-order from GameStop or something to have the Prothean guy, yeah. Prothean, that's one hell of a thing to look behind a barrier like that, man. That is so despicable. After all this time, I still think that's absolutely despicable of them to lock that behind a paywall, man. Like after buying an expensive game, you look behind like some of the most like lore significant characters. Like off unless you do a very specific thing. That's classic EA, beautiful, but yeah. It's very, very, very EA, absolutely. Yeah, because you can't imagine anyone at BioWare thinking that's like a good idea. That's a tactically horribly bad idea. That's like surgically evil, you know? Completely disappeared. I guess DLC is what sort of replaced that, right? Like post-launch support is kind of what replaced charging for basically nothing. DLC shit now, yeah. Oh, for a while it was on-disc DLC. That was the thing that replaced it immediately after, right? Like literally like chopping off bits of your game, putting it on a disc, and selling it later for DLC. I think that's what it actually was. Yeah.
Yes.
God, that shit was horrible, man. That was like particularly bad for, I think, fighting games. It was like, what's got that stuff to It's like Capcom fighting games. They had some horrible practices for like DLC and on this DLC. Did you know a lot about Street Fighter Cross Tekken? It's not a game a lot of people play, I don't think. But that game got it really bad. So that game had a bunch of characters that were like DLC only, and you had to like wait like a long time to get them, especially if you were on like a non-Sony console. And because like some characters were like PS Vita exclusives as well. So there was like 5 or so characters that was like unavailable for anyone that weren't playing on Sony consoles, and like some were like exclusive to the Vita. You could like hack your game in order to see on this DLC and actually even play it. And worse, you could actually go online and play the DLC that was just on the disc, but you couldn't buy it. So a lot of people were just like stuck with a game that had like a bunch of content chopped out of it, playing against people that hacked the game to play as that content. God, fuck that shit, man. It was all popping off back then. But I used to pirate all my games, so I got that shit anyway. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was like the height of like, if you pirate the game, you just get a better version of the game. Like that was the time for that. Like it isn't like that as much now, because like everyone's just making online shit now. Everything is a live service on MMO or something, so you have to buy it, because otherwise you can't connect to the network, etc, etc. I wonder why everyone's making live service games. Oh, obviously there's also the battle pass and shit now. I think this game had a goofy shit where you got different starting items based on what store you bought it from. Oh fuck, I hate that stuff. It's so crazy that like some companies still do that. Like Ubisoft especially, right? Like Ubisoft and EA still do that shit. Where you need like the flow charts and you like know what edition you have to buy. Like people always say Ubisoft does that stuff, but I think EA is just as bad, right? Wasn't Anthem like super confusing? Oh fuck me. Oh fuck. Oh shit. Frig. Oh god damn it. Oh poop. 1 second. I'm just gonna back out of here. I'm gonna go to my spirit form. You got the cage. Okay, cool. Don't tell me. Rude. He's dead. Oh, he's not dead yet. I think I'm dead then. I think there's no reason to fight the golems. I think I'm plus if I fireball it. Shit, he didn't knock it down. What? Okay, I'm playing Dark Souls 2 apparently. Get away! Get away! What is that? It's a barrier? No! I'm gonna have to fire, dude. I'm fine. On the rim. Nice. We got it. No! Don't grab me. Don't pick me up. Don't do it. Got it. What a rude little boy. Doesn't even drop any items. Unbelievable. Can I touch the lyrium thing? No. Oh, at least we killed that demon. Yeah, so like GameStop versus Walmart and shit, all that different items. Yep. Yeah, that was the thing with Street Fighter Cross Tekken as well. That was a game where so your characters could equip gems. And gems basically just made your character better. So you could, you know, equip a gem that made you more powerful or faster, or some of the gems were like, you block without blocking, or you automatically tech grabs, or there's some other ones, but those are the ones I remember. So you could just have those equipped and like no one could hit you. And you could buy those. In fact, you couldn't get those without buying them. And there was a lot of gems you could get that way if you pre-ordered from GameStop or Walmart or from your uncle or wherever. Cool game. Nice one, Capcom. Nice. Good job on that one. We are past break time right now. I'll do this one, and then we'll do a break. I'll do this one, then we'll do a break. How about that? Hey, Elsa. Guldana? I don't remember Guldana. Who's that?
Hey, it's great to see you again. I was just thinking about you. Isn't that a marvelous coincidence? This is my sister, Guldana. These are her children, and there's more about somewhere. We're one big happy family, at long last.
The demons, you know.
Oh, that's what everyone says about their relatives. But I've never been happier.
I'm overjoyed to have my little brother back. I'll never let him out of my sight again.
Of course Alistair is tricked because he's very thick. You live with your sister?
There's nothing wrong with living with my sister. I've never had a real family before.
Well, Alistair, is your friend staying for supper?
Say you'll stay. Guldana's a great cook. Maybe she'll make her mince pie. You can, can't you?
Of course, dear brother.
No, I don't have a
Anything
mince
for
pie
you.
with you two. No, no thank you. She's a demon in disguise. Don't believe any of this.
How can you say that about Guldana? She's the soul of goodness.
And yeah, Anthem was very bad. It was very easy to see that you wouldn't have to buy that. Think about this and how you got here. Think carefully.
All right, if it makes you happy. It's a little fuzzy. That's strange.
Alistair, come and have some tea.
No. Wait. I remember a tower. The circle. It was under attack. There were demons. That's all I really remember.
The sloth demon. Do you remember that?
Are you saying this is a dream? But it's so real.
Of course it's real. Now wash up before supper and I...
Something doesn't feel quite right here.
Something's not quite right.
I think I have to go.
Come with me then.
No, he is ours, and I'd rather see him dead than free.
Oh. Might have revealed yourself for that. A little bit sussy, maybe. A little bit of a sussy backer there, your sister. Could I use any spells, please? Thank you. Alistair, you don't mind a fireball, do you? Oh, you're fine. You took that fireball like a champ. And what if you kill your sister? I think you'll have some better closure for that. No, you have to hit that. Good job, Alistair. That'll help you. Yeah, you can't say I never did anything good for you, Alistair.
Guldana? I can't believe it. How did I not see this earlier?
You're in the Fade, which isn't like the real world. It's like the real world, but bad.
Try not to tell everyone how easily fooled I was. Are we going now? Wait, where are you going? What's happening to me? Hey!
Hey! he did a blur face. Oh, okay. That's an interesting expression you just did there. Alright, this is a perfect time for a break, I think. Yeah, because he did this. We are halfway done. Oh my god. Like, it's not halfway done, really. We already made a lot of progress in these other ones. So I guess it's more like 2/3 done, I guess. But it looks like halfway done when you look at this map. Oh my god. No, wait a second. We're not taking a break. I've almost been streaming for 3 hours. Never mind, I'm at the end of the stream. No, wait, no, we don't take a break at all. I don't mean to take a break now. We're going for like 4 hours, but I'm not. I guess we're trying to finish the Fade tonight. You know what? I'm finishing the Fade tonight. So I'm going for as long as it takes, which means I'm definitely going to take a break right now. Alright, see you all in like 5 to 10-ish minutes. Probably 5 minutes. Be right back, everyone. See you soon. Thank you all for joining. Hello, I'm back. Welcome back, everyone. Hello, hello. Let's go. Halo 3, finish the fate. Where you going, Master Chef? I'm finishing the fate. I'm sick of this place. I don't want to be here the next game. Very understandable, Master Chef. I get it. Oh, I get you. Oh, freak. Oh, there's like enemies in every single room in this game, man. Just never any end enemies. Totally forgot how like aggressive they are in combat in this game. Oh, the burning Templar, so they don't take any damage from fire. Oops. Makes sense. Honestly, if they don't take damage from fire, I don't actually know what to use against them. I guess the golem, right? Golem or wizard. I feel like goblin. Yeah, sure, the goblin. The rock goblin kind of works against like everything. It's just like kind of slow against everything, right? Goblin form. Enter goblin mode. I can't believe we don't enter goblin mode in this though. That's unbelievable. It changed between a bunch of forms and none from a goblin form. Oh my god. Not only is there like enemies in every room, this room has multiple groups. There we go. Yum yum, love delirium. There's a demon in here then. Oh, this guy. I feel like it's gonna be worth it. I'll tank his initial spell first. With this guy. And then I'll just change to spirit guy and kill him. Not doing anything. There we go. I knew that. Might have done it at the exact wrong time there. I feel like, yeah, I stood in some fire effect though. It's fine, it didn't do much damage to me, it's all good. Ooh, strength. I think strength is still good for me. Kinda wish their strength gave me some, like encumbrance as well though. That is sick. It says win. This might be win. Mice are kind of goblin-y. Yeah. You're not wrong, yeah.
Maker, forgive me. I failed them all. They died and I did not stop it.
But they're not dead yet, Win. Zergo can still be saved.
What about all this? How can you say that when you are faced with this? Death. Can you not see it? It's all around us.
You're in the Fade. This is a dream.
Why was I spared? If not to help them, what use is my life? Now that I have failed in the task that was given me, leave me to my grief. I shall bury their bones, scatter their ashes to the four winds, and mourn their passing, till I too am dead.
You have to fight this feeling, whatever it is.
Your blatant disregard for the souls of the dead strikes me as being utterly inappropriate.
You fall apart so easily, it just does not seem like you.
You do not know me. You have no right to make such judgments.
I am the only thing that's real. Ignore everything else.
I do not know what this will accomplish, but I will do this.
Why is my persuasion so good? I barely expect into it.
Difficult to focus. It feels as though something is stopping me from concentrating. I've never had so much trouble. Perhaps some time away from this place will help me think clearly.
Being away from me, I should make you feel better.
Don't leave us, Win. We don't want to be alone.
Well, it's shot at shot. Not really convincing
Stay
though.
away, foul creature.
Yeah, nice try, guy. You have to defeat them to leave.
Stay, Win. Sleep soundly in the comforting embrace of the earth. Do not fight it. You belong here with us.
No, not yet. My task is not yet done. It is not time yet.
Come away to your rest.
No, thank you. I'm just gonna zap you.
Which one?
I'm just gonna give you the fireball, actually.
Watch out!
Root. No, it's spreading out. Delta split. You're not allowed to do that. Oh god, I almost dead though. Got another fireball in there. Boom.
We are victorious.
And I should get fireball for real. That was a pretty good spell.
Is it over? Thank the Maker for you. Wait, what's happening? Where are you going?
Bye. Well, that was like 1 second long. No. She didn't get any time there to say anything. Which one was this? Oh, Niall's one. Yeah, and he had the door here. I feel like there was another door in here as well. Yeah, I'll run around here quickly. I feel like there was another door.
Going.
I was tempted to take some notes of where I found stuff, but ended up thinking I don't actually care that much. I think I'm fine if I end up missing a constitution or whatever. I feel like I remember a door in here. Since I remember it, I may as well check. Is that spiral thing I set up? Yeah, it's a door. Hello? Oh, there's a boat! There's a boat! Who put us here? What's this then? In the last room. Did you see it on the map or something? Huh. I didn't see a spiral thing. I'll have a look around. I don't think I can go back, can I? Oh, I think I can. Spiral thingy, eh? What could this be then? Nothing here. I think you meant for the mouse hole here. So look. Oh yeah, there's a spiral thingy there. Was wondering about that thing there before. Hey, what's that up there? Twisted structures. Oh, that's the thing you talked about, isn't it? There's nothing here. It's a weird place though. It looks like there should be something here, but there's not. But I can't go back. But I'll get back at the after doing this loop, I think, because I think it's where I started. And there's no enemies, thankfully, so this should be pretty quick. I don't know what's that spiral thing is even going to be though. Because I don't remember seeing one of them. There we are. Wait, where did you see it? Did you see it here? No, it would have been here. Next room, yeah.
All right.
Wait, was he here? How did I get up there? I don't know how to get up there. Oh, hang on, I can see. Let's see, I'm facing that direction. Mouse hole. Where am I? Up here. Not hip, not back. I don't know if there's anywhere else I can go. In the Roman columns. You mean here? I can't seem to touch this thing. It does look out of place, doesn't it? I can't seem to touch it, anything. It's not. Yeah, I was looking at that before. I was like, what's the deal with that? There is something up there though. Twisted structure. I don't know how to get to it. No, it totally did, yeah. And it's like in a part of the room where there's nothing as well. It seems very suspicious. And then it just is nothing. It's strange. It feels like there was supposed to be like a guy there or something. I don't know how to get to that twisted structure thing though. Like the only place it could be is at the start here? No, it might be through here. It's gonna be through here. That's where it is. 100%. Yeah, there it is. Twisted structure. Yevina, hello. Can I interest you in a jail? Yes, nice. I wonder if that's an actual skill I can get. It seems really, really strong. I would love to get that to Morrigan. Yeah, she friggin' died. There's the thing. That's like a weird tent. It just got me experience points anyway. It wasn't anything special. Take distance. I'll take this willpower. Yum, yum. Thank you. That might be it from this place, actually. Yeah, I guess we're leaving. Speak to Niall. And then we go to the Sloth Demon, I suppose.
What did you do? I felt something. Like the earth was shifting. Except it probably wasn't the earth.
Killed one of the demons on the islands.
You did. You managed to get to it. I didn't think it was possible. Killing that demon must have opened something. Perhaps the pieces are falling into place now.
Bye. The Inner Sanctum. It's time. We finally made it through the fade. Oof. And a bad time too. No one else wants to join me here? Okay. Sure thing.
What do
You're
we
looking different,
have here? A rebellious minion? An escaped slave? My, but you do have some gall. But playtime is over. You all have to go back now.
Oh, here I am.
Poof.
There you are. You just disappeared.
It just poofed there. There was no effect or
No
anything.
matter.
You made a dangerous enemy, demon, by toying with my mind.
That's like the opposite of fading in.
Will not hold us, demon. We found each other in this place, and you cannot stand against us.
The word "we" is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that word. In that sentence.
Better this time. I'll make you much happier.
I don't want anything you offer.
I made you happy and safe. I gave you peace. I did my best for you, and you say you want to leave?
Yes, yes. The fate sucks. I want to leave.
Other than yourself, I'm hurt.
You did a terrible job.
Very hurt.
I'll take my chances. I'll do nothing you say.
Wish to battle me? So be it. You will learn to bow to your
Oh, weird neck.
mortal.
You got a weird neck. You're a snake. Snake person. Wait, why are you a big ogre demon? What? But you were a wizard. What? This demon has like 3 different models. What's going on? Hey, I'm a ghost, by the way. Don't be alarmed. I am also a demon. You're in jail. You're frozen. Not long though, because now you're fine. No, stop that! What if you could actually grab me while I'm like any of these like shapes? I bet there's like no animation budget, or like it's doing like a special like grab animation on me or something while you know, Golem. I'm probably immune to any sort of Golem trickery while that's happening. No ogre trickery on me. And then, no, I was hoping for that to be the last hit. No gold for me. My game crashed. Oh, my game faded. Oh my god. No. No. Fucking damn it. This game just fucking crashes on every cutscene, I swear. Why is it like this? Hello, Sloth Demon. Yeah, I'll be fighting again.
Why can't you think about it?
Okay. Round 2. It's intentional. This is actually a not a best of 1, not the first to 1 fight. We're doing a first to 2 here. And there's 2 rounds to every fight as well. So this is actually standard practice. Don't worry about it. Can I backstab us, Burning Man? If I can, this would be crazy DPS. I can. Oh, it's fucking dead. I don't have to do anything. Better make a perfect 2007 PC with Vista so you can stream this authentically. Yeah, I'm just gonna dig my bulldozer chip out, man. My FX 8300. Wait, what? Oh, it changes into different demons, and it crashed when it changed demons. Okay, I see. That's why it was so easy though.
Run while you can.
My magic will make
No, stop attacking me. Alistair, do your job better. Taunt him. Alistair, taunt him.
Now we go into
I'm backstabbing. There we go, thank you.
Command the shadow of your darkest dreams.
That's not a demon, you're just a shade now. You're a regular enemy. Alistair, you're doing a terrible job still. Alistair, stop. God, I feel like I should have gone into assassination just so I can get like better backstabs and stuff. I feel like that's what that skill tree did. Because I'm realizing now like how busted backstabs are. That's so much damage. Like getting every single hit to do backstab bonus is absurd.
You defeated the demon. I never thought I never expected you to free yourself. To free us both. When you return, take the litany of Adrala from my body. It will protect you from the worst of the blood magic.
I'm sure I can do it without it.
Don't be foolish. This is not something to take chances with. I wish I could help, but I cannot go with you. I've been here far too long. For you, it will have been an afternoon's nap. Your body won't have wasted away in the real world while your spirit lays in the hands of a demon.
You think you're going to die?
Every minute I was here, the sloth demon was feeding off of me, using my life to fuel the nightmares of this realm. There is so little of me left. I was never meant to save the circle or survive its troubles. I am dying. It is as simple as that.
There must be something I can do.
Thank you, but it is too late for me. I do not fear what may come. They say we return to the Maker in death, and that isn't such a terrible thing. My only regret is that I could not save the circle. But you can. Take the litany off my body.
Take the litany off my body.
It is important.
Feel the strength of the earth. Suppose I can manage that.
I'm not a hero. Perhaps trying to be one was foolish.
That was a nice try, but you should have left it to the experts.
Before I was taken to the circle, my mother said I was meant for greatness. That I would be more than my ancestors could have ever dreamed. I hope I haven't disappointed her.
I'm sure she's very proud of you. My mother's very proud.
Us both to be on our way. Remember the litany of Adrala. The circle is all that matters now. Thank you, and goodbye, friend.
You're not friends. You just met. Your mum thinks you're great too? Nice! So does my mum. My mother's very proud. Oh, Niall's body. It's that lion. And there's Litany of Adrala. Litany has the power to stun demons and stop mind controlling blood magic if it is used. At the moment the spell is cast. Let's use that. But I think that this is a good time to call the stream before we get too out of hand here. And I guess we'll finish the Mage Tower the next stream. Whenever that is. Whenever that is. Cheers for coming to streamer on. Hope you all had a nice time, and hope you have a great evening. Thank you all. We'll see when the next stream is. Could be next Tuesday. Who knows? I'll have to see on next Tuesday what's going on. If there's no more streams in like December and like Christmas, at least it'll be something in January. But we'll see. Cheers. Take it easy, everyone. Good night. Bye-bye. See ya.